It started on a muggy Thursday in early August 2017, when agents Rachel Collins and Tessa Ward signed out of the Pentagon's Northern Security Desk at 4:48 a.m. Their mission was routine, a sweep of Sector K-12, a rarely patrolled section of restricted woodland bordering an old, decommissioned military quarry. The zone was off-limits to civilians, marked only by rusted fencing, outdated radiation warning signs, and thick underbrush that swallowed footsteps within seconds. Rachel, the senior of the two, didn't like K-12. Too quiet, she always said. But orders were orders. They loaded up their black PFPA transport, submitted their route, and rolled out before the sun had touched the horizon. No one saw them again. By 6 p.m. that evening, neither woman had returned. The first alerts were internal, non-responsiveness over comms, missed check-ins, a blank vehicle GPS. By 8 p.m., a limited search team was dispatched. They found the transport, parked, locked, unmarked by struggle, exactly where it was supposed to be. Their standard issue equipment was inside, one sidearm, both ID badges, and a single cracked body cam with a flickering green light. But the agents themselves were gone. Not a drop of blood, not a broken branch, not even a set of footprints past the forest edge. The only oddity was the strange electromagnetic interference nearby, unusual but not unprecedented in older military zones. The investigation began and was promptly buried. Within 48 hours, the story was labeled internal disappearance under evaluation. The families received minimal information. A Pentagon statement cited possible desertion or misadventure. Rachel's younger sister, Erin Collins, knew better. "My sister doesn't vanish. She doesn't quit. If Rachel's gone, it's because someone made her disappear." She would spend the next 8 years clawing through red tape and silence, building a private timeline, cross-referencing declassified logs, and talking to anyone who had once worn the PFPA badge. Most stopped answering her calls after a while. Others warned her to drop it. One even said, "You're asking questions that get people locked away." Meanwhile, Sector K-12 was quietly closed to all personnel under a biohazard remediation order. A fence went up. Patrols stopped. Satellite coverage was scrambled, rerouted, obscured. Something was buried there, and whatever it was, the Pentagon didn't want it found. Then came June 2025. Deep in the Virginia hills, miners working for a private extraction company were assigned to drill exploratory shafts into abandoned federal quarry lands recently sold to civilian investors after being declared clear of strategic interest. Most of the crew thought it was just a cost-saving exercise, a harvest the last of the old mineral veins and get out. They were wrong. On the morning of June 4th, a seismic anomaly triggered a microcollapse inside Shaft B-17. No one was hurt, but something strange was unearthed behind a wall of collapsed sediment. At first, it looked like a tunnel. Then they found the bones. The first team didn't know what they were looking at, just that it wasn't supposed to be there. A sealed chamber, maybe natural, maybe not, wrapped in thick iron-veined rock and partially reinforced with ancient, corroded steel. The remains were skeletal, arranged strangely in what appeared to be a semicircle near the far wall. But that wasn't the worst part. Embedded in the rock above them, drilled in and blackened with age, was a piece of PFPA equipment, a locator beacon, military grade, with a serial number tied directly to Agent Rachel Collins. The cave was immediately shut down. Local law enforcement was dismissed. Federal vehicles arrived less than 6 hours later. A new perimeter was drawn. Cell signals died. The miners were given non-disclosure forms and threats disguised as national security guidelines. But one man, Miguel Estrada, a night foreman with 2 kids and a healthy fear of the government, took a photo before they forced the phones into the bins. It showed a half-exposed shoulder badge, scorched and torn, but unmistakable, PFPA. Erin Collins got the image via an encrypted message board 2 days later. She didn't sleep that night. All she could do was stare at the timestamp on the photo, then at the handwritten notes she'd obsessively collected for nearly a decade. Every strange tremor in that area. Every contractor hired and fired in silence. Every dog that refused to enter the woods near K-12. Now it was real. Rachel had been there. Maybe still was. But that photo wasn't what finally cracked the story open. That came when one of the miners, a former Army EOD tech, described something else buried behind the bones. Something metallic. Something pulsing with low-frequency sound. Something that hummed when touched, like a heartbeat. And it was still on. Erin Collins didn't wait for permission. By the time the miner's site had been cordoned off by the feds, she was already in her car, driving through the night toward Virginia. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Every mile that passed felt like a heartbeat counting down toward something she couldn't name. The GPS took her within 5 miles of the quarry before the signal cut out. After that, she relied on the printed maps she'd obsessively marked for years. Roads that no longer existed. Service paths she wasn't supposed to know about. Trails she remembered walking once with her sister before either of them knew what PFPA stood for. At the final bend, the way was blocked. 2 black SUVs sat like silent guards in front of the access gate. No insignia, no plates, no personnel visible. But Erin had planned for this. She parked far off the road, slung her gear onto her back, and slipped into the woods just as the first light began to creep over the ridgeline. She moved quickly and carefully, bypassing the known checkpoints and staying low to the ground. This wasn't the first time she'd infiltrated federal ground. It was just the first time it wasn't a protest or a press stunt. She knew the risks. If they caught her now, she wouldn't just be arrested. She'd vanish the way Rachel had. But there was no going back. Not after seeing that image. She found a clearing near the southeast fence where the wire had rusted enough to snap. She slipped through and crawled under the brush. The terrain sloped steeply downward into a basin where a temporary structure had been erected. Tents, scanning equipment, generators muffled under black tarps. Soldiers, no patches, no names, moved with mechanical precision. But it was the center of the site that held her attention. The cave opening, jagged and dark like a wound in the earth, now half covered by floodlights and a collapsible scaffold. Something was being wheeled out under a tarp. It was long, metallic, and humming audibly even from her position nearly 70 yards away. She pulled out her binoculars and adjusted the lens. What she saw made her breath catch. Under a fluttering edge of the tarp was a corner of dull gray armor plating. Not standard issue, not anything she'd seen in Pentagon archives, but with grooves that looked almost biological, like the shell had grown rather than been built. Near it, a man in a clean suit was arguing with a uniformed officer, holding what appeared to be a containment device with blinking red indicators. She snapped photos quickly. She would need proof. Just then, a voice barked from behind her. "Don't move." She froze. The barrel of a rifle nudged her shoulder. 2 men hauled her up roughly, tearing the camera from her hands. They didn't ask questions. No rights read. No explanations. Just a blunt hood over her head and the heavy press of a zip tie around her wrists. She was marched, stumbling, silent, into one of the black tents where she was forced into a chair. The hood came off and a light seared into her eyes. Aaron Collins, the man across from her, said without introduction, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Found my sister," she answered, defiant. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. "You were warned years ago to stop digging," he said. "Your obsession is compromising national security." "Then explain the bones," she said. "Explain the beacon. Explain why you're treating this like a bioweapon leak." The man leaned forward. "Because it is." The silence between them thickened. "Your sister didn't vanish. She was taken by something we didn't understand, something that activated the moment their boots crossed into that cave. We've spent years trying to contain it, studying the electromagnetic anomalies, the psychic echoes, the way tech fails within 50 feet of its core. The object buried inside that cave isn't from any military program. It's alive or something close to it." Aaron's mind reeled. "You knew where she was all this time." "No," he said. "We didn't. The cave was buried by a collapse 2 days after her disappearance. We had no idea the signal was still transmitting. It only restarted last week. And the bones? Some of them are hers. Some aren't human." Aaron shook her head. "I don't believe you." "You don't have to," he said, standing. "You're not leaving here with that camera. But we're not going to kill you either. You're going to help us." "Help you do what?" "Find out what your sister became." Before she could answer, the tent flap burst open. An alarm began wailing across the camp, low, vibrating, followed by a sharp tremor that shook the ground beneath them. People outside were shouting. Something had activated. The humming grew louder, deeper, almost like a growl. "Is it waking up?" Aaron whispered. The man didn't answer. He reached for his radio and barked, "Lock it down. No one leaves the basin. Seal the shaft." Too late. From the cave, a figure emerged, stumbling, draped in shredded tactical gear, half covered in dust and blood. One arm dangled unnaturally, but the face, partially visible through the grime, made Aaron's heart stop. It was Rachel. She was alive. Or at least, she had been. Something was wrong. Aaron spun around, heart pounding against her ribs like a warning drum. The voice had been faint but unmistakable. Tessa. It wasn't a memory, wasn't a hallucination, it came from deep within the shaft, echoing past the hum of machinery and the chaos of alarms. No one else seemed to hear it. The soldiers nearby were too busy restraining the panicked researchers as the object pulsed again, louder this time, shaking the ground with the weight of something far older than language. Aaron ducked behind a stack of transport crates, gripped the stolen badge in her pocket, and waited for the tremor to pass. When the floodlights flickered off for half a second, she slipped into the darkness and sprinted toward the mouth of the cave. She crossed the threshold and descended deeper than she'd gone before. Inside, the cave widened into an unnatural gallery, walls smooth like they'd been melted by something that didn't obey physics. The carvings became denser here, crisscrossing every surface in perfect symmetry like veins running through the bones of the mountain. Her flashlight dimmed the moment she flicked it on. Something about this place drained power, drained thought. But still, she moved forward, driven by the sound of that voice. Help! This time closer. It was a broken whisper, strained and wet, like the speaker hadn't used their voice in years. The air was different the further she went. Denser. Metallic. It felt like walking through the inside of a lung that wasn't quite human. Then she saw it, half buried in crystallized dust, wrapped in shredded black tactical gear, another body. But it wasn't dead. A faint rise and fall of the chest. A weak tremor in the fingers. Aaron fell to her knees beside the woman and shone the fading light across her face. Tessa, she whispered. The eyelids fluttered. The face was thinner, cheeks hollow, skin pale with veins like silver threads. But it was her. Tessa Ward. Somehow still alive. Somehow still here. Aaron, Tessa croaked. They're listening. Aaron leaned closer. Who's listening? What happened to you? Tessa struggled to speak, but her words fractured into gasps. Not dead. Not yet. It took us. It tried to learn us. Think through us. Rachel, it changed her first. She fought. She always fought. But I. Her eyes rolled back, a seizure taking hold. Aaron gripped her, desperate, but there was nothing she could do. She tore open her bag, grabbed the injector marked with a red cross from the stolen kit, and plunged it into Tessa's shoulder. After a few agonizing seconds, the tremor slowed. Her eyes focused again. You have to destroy it, she whispered. Destroy what? Tessa didn't answer. Her hand reached into her vest, pulling out a crumpled black capsule, a drive, maybe. This is what we saw. What it showed us. They won't let you leave with it. Aaron took it, pressing it into her own pocket as footsteps echoed from above. They were coming. She threw Tessa's arm over her shoulder, stood, and began dragging her back up the passage. The cave seemed to resist them, lights dimming, air tightening, floor shifting ever so slightly underfoot. When they reached the main chamber again, the object had changed. It was no longer a cocoon. It was opening. Like petals of metal unfolding around a hollow, humming center. Within it, something blinked. A single, massive eye. The soldiers nearby screamed and fired without order. Bullets ricocheted off invisible barriers. One man collapsed, clutching his chest, eyes bleeding. The others turned and ran. The object pulsed again, sending a shockwave that threw Aaron and Tessa to the ground. Everything went white for a second. Then silence. The eye was gone. The object had sealed itself again. Aaron pushed herself up and saw a familiar face sprinting toward her, Rachel. She was gasping, arm at first, no one moved. The armed guards flanking the cave had their weapons trained but didn't fire. The scientists stood frozen in place, mouths agape. Even the man who interrogated Aaron stood still, radio clutched in his hand, blinking at the impossible. Rachel Collins, dead for nearly a decade, mourned, buried in classified files, was walking out of a sealed cave under her own power. But Aaron saw it before any of them. The walk wasn't right. Rachel's left leg dragged, the boot shredded and twisted. Her right arm hung motionless, elbow bent at a grotesque angle. Her breathing was uneven. Her eyes blinked rapidly, one slightly dilated, the other almost lifeless. Yet there she was, walking through the floodlights like something pulled from a dream half-finished. Her PFPA badge still clung to what remained of her vest, blackened and rusted. She stopped at the edge of the platform and stared directly at Aaron. Rachel, Aaron whispered, stepping forward instinctively before the guards blocked her path. Hold her back, the officer yelled, but it was already too late. Rachel opened her mouth. The sound that came out wasn't speech. It wasn't screaming either. It was something else, a low, grinding vibration that seemed to bypass the ears and hit directly behind the eyes, like a tuning fork slamming into bone. Everyone nearby recoiled. Floodlights flickered. The generators hiccuped. One of the floodlight towers crashed to the ground, snapping in half. The armed guards screamed in pain and dropped their weapons, clutching their heads. The vibration lasted 3 full seconds. Then silence. Rachel collapsed. Aaron broke free and rushed toward her, but she didn't get far. The man in the clean suit shouted, "Containment. Now. Move." 3 agents in hazmat gear descended, dragging Rachel's body toward the medical tent while another team swept in to sedate Aaron. They didn't succeed. The chaos gave her just enough time to vanish into the darkness behind the tents, crawling through dust and tangled wires until she reached the medical perimeter from the rear. There, through a crack in the canvas wall, she watched them hook Rachel's body to machines she didn't recognize. IVs, neuroprobes, devices that pulsed with lights in patterns too complex to be random. Her sister's vitals flashed onto a monitor. Elevated heart rate, erratic neural activity, oxygenation levels off the charts. But the readings didn't make sense. Her body temperature was 2 degrees below survivable range. Her cells were replicating at an abnormal rate. Her blood had traces of heavy metals. And something else, something marked as unreadable sequence detected. Inside the tent, 2 voices argued, one demanding immediate decontamination, the other insisting Rachel was still human. Aaron couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Her nervous system is misfiring," one said. "It's not built for this much signal." "Is she infected?" "Not in the way you're thinking. She's been integrated." "By what?" A pause. Then grimly, "The object. The object. The thing buried in the cave. The thing they said was alive." Aaron turned away, bile rising in her throat. Her sister had vanished chasing ghosts, and now she was back, part of something unnatural, something possibly inhuman. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the questions roared too loudly in her head. What had they done to her in that cave? What had she seen? And why did the military want her alive? Back near the excavation shaft, a second discovery was being made. The miners who drilled the original breach had noticed the rock near the impact point was not just stone. Embedded in it were carvings, symbols unlike any known language, glowing faintly under black light, etched deep into the surface in spiraling patterns. One engineer tried photographing them, only to find his camera refused to function. The symbols seemed to disrupt electronics within a 10-foot radius. Another tried sketching them by hand, but later forgot what he'd drawn. "Like it left my brain," he said, terrified. "Like it erased itself." In response, the site was divided into zones. Zone A for medical. Zone B for the object. Zone C for unexplored sectors of the shaft. Aaron, still hiding within the camp, managed to steal a lab badge off an unconscious technician. She disguised herself in a torn lab coat and began shadowing the outer edge of Zone A. That's when she overheard the transmission. High-value recovery confirmed. Subject 1 stabilized. Subject 2 still missing. She stopped cold. Subject 2. Rachel hadn't gone into that cave alone. Tessa Ward. She was still out there. Aaron didn't know what pushed her forward after that. Grief, guilt, or the knowledge that Rachel's return meant hope. But she knew she had to find out what happened to Tessa. If Rachel survived, maybe the other agent had too. She memorized the schedule of patrols, found a moment between shifts, and slipped into Zone B. The object stood at the cave's heart, surrounded by radiation sensors and temperature probes. It resembled a massive metallic cocoon, slick with condensation, throbbing gently like a pulse. Strange cables ran from its surface into the rock walls as if feeding or drawing energy. A technician nearby whispered, "It's growing." A researcher responded, "Or remembering." Aaron didn't understand, but she didn't care. She needed data, names, recordings, locations. She crept into the adjacent command tent and rifled through a metal case until she found it. A sealed envelope marked, "Archive, Operation Echo Vale." Inside were logs, video stills, transcripts, a single hand-drawn map labeled Ward, Last Ping, coordinates scrawled in red ink. Aaron shoved everything into her bag and slipped out just as the lights flickered again. The object emitted a low hum, deeper this time. Several people clutched their heads. Someone screamed. From the far side of the cave, a voice echoed, "Help!" Aaron turned. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Rachel. It was Tessa. Aaron spun around, heart pounding against her ribs like a warning drum. The voice had been faint but unmistakable. Tessa. It wasn't a memory, wasn't a hallucination, it came from deep within the shaft, echoing past the hum of machinery and the chaos of alarms. No one else seemed to hear it. The soldiers nearby were too busy restraining the panicked researchers as the object pulsed again, louder this time, shaking the ground with the weight of something far older than language. Aaron ducked behind a stack of transport crates, gripped the stolen badge in her pocket, and waited for the tremor to pass. When the floodlights flickered off for half a second, she slipped into the darkness and sprinted toward the mouth of the cave. She crossed the threshold and descended deeper than she'd gone before. Inside, the cave widened into an unnatural gallery, walls smooth like they'd been melted by something that didn't obey physics. The carvings became denser here, crisscrossing every surface in perfect symmetry like veins running through the bones of the mountain. Her flashlight dimmed the moment she flicked it on. Something about this place drained power, drained thought. But still, she moved forward, driven by the sound of that voice. Help! This time closer. It was a broken whisper, strained and wet, like the speaker hadn't used their voice in years. The air was different the further she went. Denser. Metallic. It felt like walking through the inside of a lung that wasn't quite human. Then she saw it half buried in crystallized dust, wrapped in shredded black tactical gear. Another body. But it wasn't dead. A faint rise and fall of the chest. A weak tremor in the fingers. Aaron fell to her knees beside the woman and shone the fading light across her face. Tessa, she whispered. The eyelids fluttered. The face was thinner, cheeks hollow, skin pale with veins like silver threads. But it was her. Tessa Ward. Somehow still alive. Somehow still here. Aaron, Tessa croaked. They're listening. Aaron leaned closer. Who's listening? What happened to you? Tessa struggled to speak, but her words fractured into gasps. Not dead. Not yet. It took us. It tried to learn us. Think through us. Rachel, it changed her first. She fought. She always fought. But I. Her eyes rolled back, a seizure taking hold. Aaron gripped her, desperate, but there was nothing she could do. She tore open her bag, grabbed the injector marked with a red cross from the stolen kit, and plunged it into Tessa's shoulder. After a few agonizing seconds, the tremor slowed. Her eyes focused again. You have to destroy it, she whispered. Destroy what? Tessa didn't answer. Her hand reached into her vest, pulling out a crumpled black capsule, a drive, maybe. This is what we saw. What it showed us. They won't let you leave with it. Aaron took it, pressing it into her own pocket as footsteps echoed from above. They were coming. She threw Tessa's arm over her shoulder, stood, and began dragging her back up the passage. The cave seemed to resist them, lights dimming, air tightening, floor shifting ever so slightly underfoot. When they reached the main chamber again, the object had changed. It was no longer a cocoon. It was opening, like petals of metal unfolding around a hollow, humming center. Within it, something blinked. A single, massive eye. The soldiers nearby screamed and fired without order. Bullets ricocheted off invisible barriers. One man collapsed, clutching his chest, eyes bleeding. The others turned and ran. The object pulsed again, sending a shockwave that threw Aaron and Tessa to the ground. Everything went white for a second. Then silence. The eye was gone. The object had sealed itself again. Aaron pushed herself up and saw a familiar face sprinting toward her. Rachel. She was gasping, arms scratched but coherent. Tessa? She called, falling to her knees. I found her, Aaron said. She's alive. Rachel looked different now. Less haunted. More aware. We have to get out of here. No, Aaron said, voice trembling. You need to tell me what happened in there. What that thing is. Rachel hesitated. It's not just a thing. It's a mind. It doesn't move. It doesn't speak. But it remembers. It stores consciousness. It stored us. You were trapped, Aaron asked. Not trapped, Rachel replied. Copied. The word hit like a brick. Aaron blinked. What do you mean? It took pieces of us. Memories. Emotions. Questions. It needed human thought to repair itself. To finish building. Whatever it is. Tessa and I fought it. I thought she died when the cave collapsed. But it just moved her deeper. And you? What are you now? Rachel's face was unreadable. I don't know. A loudspeaker boomed overhead. All unauthorized personnel stand down. This is a secured site. Do not move or we will open fire. Black vans skidded to a halt at the cave entrance. Men in armor poured out, different from the others. No insignia. Masks with red visors. They weren't here to question. They were here to erase. Erin gritted her teeth. We're not going to make it. Yes, we are, Rachel said. She pulled something from her pocket, a small black remote with a blinking red light. What's that? Erin asked. Insurance. Before the cave collapsed the first time, I planted a charge deep behind the object's chamber. I was going to detonate it. I never had the chance. Tessa stirred. Do it. Before it finishes. Wait, Erin said. There's something inside it. What if it's more than just a weapon? Rachel met her eyes. And what if it's not? What if it's waiting to become something worse? Erin looked between them. The object hummed again. Do it, she said. Rachel pressed the button. Nothing happened at first. Then a deep rumble tore through the cave. Lights shattered. Rocks fell from above. The object shrieked. Not audibly, but inside every skull. They ran, dragging Tessa between them, stumbling over debris as the world collapsed behind them. The masked soldiers fled, retreating as the tremors cracked the foundation. Behind them, the object pulsed one final time. Then it exploded. The blast didn't send fire. It sent silence. Everything within the inner chamber vanished, sucked inward in a flash of folding space. And then, it was just gone. Where the object had been was only dust and shattered stone. The cave was collapsing. They ran toward the surface, every breath a prayer, every footstep a race against falling death. When they burst into the sunlight, the entire hillside behind them gave way, swallowing the cave and everything around it into a massive sinkhole. They didn't stop running. Not until they reached the treeline and the noise faded. Rachel collapsed beside Erin and Tessa, eyes wild, chest heaving. It's over, she whispered. Erin wasn't sure she believed that. The smoke from the collapsed cave rose behind them like a fading memory. It blurred the edges of the sun, casting the Virginia forest in a strange half-light that didn't belong to morning or evening. The three women lay in the underbrush, bruised, exhausted, silent. Every breath felt borrowed. Every heartbeat echoed with the sound of that explosion. The object, whatever it had been, was gone. But the feeling wasn't. It lingered in the soil, in the air, in the spaces between the trees. Tessa was unconscious again, her body too weak to process movement. Erin had bundled her in a torn emergency blanket, still clutching the black data capsule that Tessa had passed her in the cave. The object inside was warm. Not hot, warm. As though it carried something alive. Rachel hadn't spoken since they'd escaped. She sat against a tree, staring at her hands, flexing her fingers like she wasn't entirely sure they were hers. Erin finally broke the silence. We need to move. Rachel didn't answer. They'll be coming, Erin added. You know they will. That blast didn't destroy everything. Someone up there knows what we found. What you became. Rachel looked up slowly, her voice hollow. I'm not sure I'm me anymore. Erin crouched beside her. You're here. You saved us. You destroyed it. I didn't destroy it, Rachel said. I woke it up. That thing, it wasn't finished. It was reaching out, trying to complete something. We were just scaffolding for it. We gave it shape. Thought. Purpose. It used us like bones. Erin looked down at the data capsule. Then what's in here? Rachel reached for it, hesitated, then pulled her hand back. Tessa said it had memories. Visions. Maybe recordings from inside the object's mind. If we can access it, we'll know what it was building. Can you? Rachel closed her eyes. Maybe. They didn't have time to argue. Minutes later, the rumble of helicopters rolled across the treetops. Erin spotted two black choppers cutting through the smoke like knives, heading directly toward the collapsed hillside. Too fast. Too organized. The Pentagon hadn't even had time to issue a public statement. These weren't search and rescue. They're going to seal the site, Erin said. And if they catch us, they'll do to us what they did to everyone else who got too close. Rachel stood. We won't let them. What's the plan? Rachel turned toward the trees. We disappear. Off-grid. Long enough to understand what we're carrying. Long enough to figure out what this thing wanted. They moved quickly, following the edge of the ridge down into the old fire trails. Rachel knew a path from her early field training, routes used by PFPA during covert simulations. It took hours to cross the dense brush, but by sundown they reached a shuttered ranger outpost buried in moss and rust. A solar array powered a few dim lights and a dead satellite dish. The place had been abandoned for years, but it would do. Inside, Rachel took a pocket knife and cracked open the data capsule. It wasn't a drive, not in the traditional sense. No USB ports. No screen. Just a smooth black core surrounded by etched rings. When she held it, it vibrated faintly. It needs a neural reader, she said. Erin blinked. Which we don't have. Rachel nodded slowly. We don't need one. It's already calibrated to us. Tessa and I were part of it long enough that it thinks we're compatible. You're going to connect your brain to that thing? I already did, she replied. It's just picking up where it left off. She lay down on the cabin floor, pressed the capsule to her temple, and closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Rachel's body arched. Her eyes fluttered. Her mouth opened in a silent gasp as the device lit up with faint white lines running across its surface. Erin rushed forward but didn't touch her. Rachel's lips moved. Words formed. Not made. Remembered. It was here before. Long before us. It wasn't buried. It was waiting. Waiting for what? Erin whispered. Rachel answered with a voice that wasn't entirely her own. For us. The light intensified, then faded. Rachel's body relaxed. She sat up, trembling. I saw things. Star maps. Cities beneath oceans. Structures carved from moonstone. Voices not human but speaking our languages. It showed me its memory of the fall. How it was shattered and scattered across the planet. We were supposed to find it. Each piece designed to call out once enough of us could hear. Erin swallowed. How many pieces? Rachel's eyes glistened. 7. And that one? Erin asked, nodding to the capsule. It was the third. A heavy silence settled over them. Erin finally said, So that means there are 4 more out there. Rachel nodded. And it's calling to them now. Outside, the forest was quiet. The helicopters were gone. But the sky above the hills shimmered faintly, like the horizon itself had cracked. Rachel turned to her sister. This isn't over. No, Erin said. It's just beginning. 2 nights passed in silence. The forest surrounding the abandoned ranger outpost offered no comfort. Every sound felt magnified, every shadow like a sentry. Tessa remained unconscious, her body still recovering from years of captivity, or worse, integration. Rachel hadn't spoken much since the vision. The black capsule now sat in a lead-lined emergency box scavenged from the outpost cellar, shielded from whatever signals it might emit. Erin stayed by Tessa's side while Rachel worked on rigging a portable sensor grid from the damaged solar panels and broken comms. None of them knew how long they could hide before the government, or worse, whatever forces the object had contacted, found them. On the 3rd day, Tessa woke up. Her eyes fluttered open without sound. Erin almost didn't notice at first. When she did, she dropped the canteen and rushed to her side. Tessa, she whispered. Tessa blinked. How long? 3 days, Erin said. You've been out since we left the cave. Tessa sat up slowly, her joints cracking as if they hadn't moved in years. Where's Rachel? Outside, Erin said. Setting traps. We're off-grid. We think the object, or part of it, is still active. Tessa nodded, her movements mechanical. It never stopped. Even after we tried to break free, it kept rebuilding. You didn't destroy it. We collapsed the cave. That wasn't enough, she said, staring into the corner. It's in us now. Pieces of it. Rachel entered then, dirt-streaked and grim. She dropped her pack and looked at Tessa, a flicker of emotion breaking her usually blank expression. You're awake. Tessa nodded. Not for long. It doesn't like me conscious. Erin looked between them. What are you talking about? Tessa slowly turned her wrist to show the underside of her arm. Tiny black veins pulsed just under the skin, branching like circuitry. We thought we escaped, she whispered. But we didn't. Rachel knelt beside her. I've been feeling it too. At night. In dreams. The pulse. Like it's sinking. You didn't bring back a piece of the object, Tessa said. You brought the interface. That capsule, it's not a memory core. It's a node. Rachel frowned. You're sure? I saw them. Before the collapse when the cave took me deeper. There were others. In stasis. Connected to the same route. Human. Not all from here. Some were dressed in uniforms I didn't recognize. Some in rags. But they were all dreaming. Dreaming what? Erin asked, chilled. Blueprints, Tessa said. Instructions. It's using us to rebuild something from its world. It can't do it alone. It needs minds. Our thoughts give it form. Rachel stood. We need to go dark again. Move further north. I've got a contact off-grid who might help us crack the encryption on that node before it completes whatever cycle it's in. I don't think that'll be enough, Tessa said. Why? Because it's not just contacting us anymore. That night, they heard the sound. Not from the forest this time, it came from above. A low-frequency pulse like a subsonic heartbeat rolled across the treetops. Birds fled. Trees trembled. The stars overhead flickered unnaturally for a moment before the sky returned to normal. Rachel grabbed her portable frequency meter. The dial was spinning. Something just pinged from low orbit, she said. Not military, not civilian either. A deep signal transmission, sub-bandwidth, piggybacking on abandoned comm satellites. Aaron stared at the stars. You think it's one of the other pieces? No, Rachel said. I think that signal was a reply. Tessa pulled herself upright. If we can feel it, they can too. Anyone who's touched these nodes is connected. Synced. The signal binds us together. Rachel nodded. And if we don't act fast, it's going to finish whatever it started. The next day, they made contact with Rachel's source. Using an encrypted channel routed through a satellite bounceback, they reached a man named Leon Nash, a former DARPA tech who had gone off-grid after a failed AI experiment he claimed got too close to thinking like God. He agreed to meet them near the Shenandoah border in an old greenhouse-turned-data bunker. It took a full day to reach him on foot, weaving through forest roads, hiding from drones, and avoiding any trail that looked too clean. Leon greeted them wearing a rebreather mask and infrared goggles. You brought the capsule? He asked. Rachel nodded. We need to extract whatever's inside before it syncs with the others. Leon studied Tessa's veins and grimaced. You don't have much time. I've seen this before. Only once. A man they pulled out of a site in Mongolia. He had black veins just like hers. He died 2 days later, but not before speaking in a language no one recognized and mapping out something on the walls. A structure. Something alien. Inside his greenhouse lab hybrid, Leon hooked the capsule to a heavily modified neural interface that used wetware scaffolding and ceramic data conductors. Rachel volunteered to link first. She'd been exposed longer and her neural signature was already matched. The moment contact was made, Rachel's body convulsed, but Leon stabilized the feedback loop. A 3D projection lit up in the air above them. It showed a map, not of Earth, of something larger. Multiple celestial bodies interconnected by beams of white light. In the center, Earth. Around it, 7 points. For still dark. 3 pulsing faintly. Those are the nodes, Leon said. 3 awakened, Rachel said, her voice echoing. For asleep. But they're listening. Suddenly the map glitched. A new light appeared, faint red, far from the others. What's that? Aaron asked. Leon's hands trembled. That's not one of ours. That's an answer. The capsule glowed brighter. A voice pulsed through the interface. Not English. Not human. Yet they understood. Alignment approaching. Hosts chosen. Shells growing. Seed will bloom. The interface shorted out. Leon ripped it off, sweating. It's not building a machine. Rachel nodded slowly. It's building a vessel. The vessel. The word echoed in Aaron's mind long after the lights in Leon's bunker dimmed and the power systems reset. Whatever these objects were, these ancient fragments buried across the earth, they weren't just relics. They were seeds. Designed to grow. To build. To change. And now 3 were awake. 4 were waiting. The capsule still hummed faintly from within its lead box, its glow muted but steady, like a heart refusing to die. No one spoke for several minutes. The interface had burned out, fuses melted from inside. Rachel's face was pale, her skin damp with cold sweat. But her voice was steady. It's constructing something. Not mechanical. Not alive either. Something in between. Tessa, her arms now wrapped in gauze to hide the black-veined growths, whispered, a vessel that can house consciousness. That's what the dreams were showing me. Thousands of minds stored like files. None of them were whole. Just fragments. Memories. Personalities without names. Leon shook his head. And it's using our minds to reassemble them. Rachel nodded. It can't build without thought. It can't design without emotion. So it grows roots into us and uses our ideas, our instincts, to shape itself. Aaron stood restless. Then we're not just survivors. We're carriers. Tessa looked up at her. And if we die before it finishes, it moves on to the next. That's why the signal's spreading. It's calling the other fragments. Bringing them together. Leon pulled out a crumpled blueprint from a file folder marked Ember Vault. The drawing looked hastily sketched but deeply detailed, layers of a structure spiraling inward like the chamber of a conch shell. Not a ship. Not a building. Something between. In the center, a space shaped like a brain, webbed with what looked like roots. This was drawn by a patient at an Air Force medical black site, he said. They claimed he'd been in contact with a signal while deployed in Afghanistan. No technology, no device. Just a sudden exposure to a low-frequency vibration. 2 weeks later, he was drawing this over and over. Rachel stared at it. It's the same geometry I saw inside the capsule's memory. Leon lowered his voice. The Pentagon's code name for this event was Project Morning Tide. They believed if the vessel ever became complete, it would act as a bridge. Not for travel, but for consciousness. Aaron frowned. You mean it's meant to bring something? Here? Or send us there? Leon said. If you can store enough minds, you don't need bodies anymore. Tessa clenched her jaw. We didn't escape. We were released. On purpose. They all stared at her. The cave didn't collapse naturally, she said. It let us go. Finished what it needed from us. The capsule we're carrying. It's not just a key. It's a delivery system. The node is migrating to the next step. We're just carriers until it finds a host strong enough to hold it. Rachel suddenly stepped back, her hand on her chest. What? Aaron asked. Rachel's pupils dilated. I can hear it again. The hum filled the room. Not from a speaker or machine, but inside their skulls. Aaron felt it too now. A low, rhythmic whisper threading behind her thoughts. Words in no language, but laced with terrifying familiarity. Tessa cried out, clutching her temple. Leon backed away, reaching for a signal jammer, but it sparked out instantly. The lights went red. EMP pulse, Leon hissed. The node's protecting itself. From outside, the sound of tires crunching gravel broke the panic. Then voices, boots, flashlights. Stay quiet, Leon whispered, flicking off the remaining power supply and locking the hatch. That's not rescue. Through the slats in the bunker's reinforced wall, they saw the unmistakable silhouette of government vehicles. Unmarked, silent, efficient. A dozen men in tactical gear fanned out, holding something Aaron had never seen before. Pulse rifles humming with a sound too high-pitched to be natural. Rachel ducked back. They tracked the node. Leon whispered, they'll take it. Erase us. They can't allow anyone to understand what this is. Aaron turned toward the capsule. If we let them take it, she said slowly, they'll finish what it started. Rachel nodded. Then we can't let them. Leon grabbed a bag from the corner and began stuffing in whatever he could salvage, maps, broken drives, a backup drone he claimed was AI silent. Rachel ripped open the emergency tunnel hatch in the back of the greenhouse floor, a narrow ductwork passage used for thermal venting. They crawled into it just as the front door shattered inward with a flash grenade. Smoke rolled through the structure. Go, Leon whispered. They won't follow through the vent. Too narrow. They didn't argue. Aaron helped Tessa first, then Rachel followed, capsule sealed inside a metal core case. Leon covered the hatch and turned to face the intruders. They made it out the other side 20 minutes later, emerging behind a row of collapsed greenhouses half a mile down the ridge. A military drone circled overhead but didn't pick them up. Leon's vented route must have been too well shielded. They fled into the woods under the cover of early morning fog. They didn't speak until they were a full mile from the site. Aaron finally said, we need to destroy the capsule. Rachel didn't answer right away. If we do, the fragments might seek new hosts. We're already marked. Tessa is bonded. I might be too. There has to be a way to sever the link, Aaron said. Tessa spoke for the first time since the escape. The vessel can't grow without its pieces. If we can find the remaining 4 nodes and isolate them before they awaken, we might stop the full alignment. How? Rachel asked. We barely escaped one. Because it wants to be found, Tessa said. That's its weakness. It's not subtle. It calls to anyone who can hear it. If we follow the signal backward instead of running from it, we can find the others first. Aaron frowned. You want to hunt them? Tessa nodded. It's not about survival anymore. It's about containment. If the vessel completes, the human mind won't be needed anymore. We'll be obsolete. They all looked up at the sky. The stars shimmered again. One of them was blinking red now. Rachel whispered. Another one just woke up. By the time the red blinking star faded from the sky, they had already crossed the river and moved deep into the national forest. their tracks hidden beneath the fog and the urgency of what they now understood. The fourth node had awakened. Somewhere in the world, another piece of the vessel had found a mind to feed on. Erin could feel the pace accelerating, like an invisible timer counting down in her chest. Tessa was getting worse. The black veins on her arms had begun to branch along her neck, and at night, she muttered words in a voice that wasn't hers. Rachel had taken to monitoring her pulse every few hours and adjusting the improvised sedative Leon had left them, but it was clear it wouldn't be enough. The node had marked her as one of its anchors. If she didn't fight it, it would finish what it started. They set up camp in an abandoned fire watch station on the far side of the forest, one Rachel had used during her early PFPA field training. Its comms had long since been stripped, but the structure still stood barely, and the high vantage gave them a view of the mountains and the radio towers beyond, most now silent or repurposed for federal surveillance. Rachel spent hours scanning the static-choked airwaves with Leon's portable signal sniffer. On the third night, it picked up something strange. A pulse, repeating every 17 seconds. Low frequency, spread across a buried band no standard civilian tech would recognize. And it wasn't coming from anywhere near Virginia. It's from Iceland, Rachel said, tapping the triangulation coordinates. Just south of Vic. That's volcanic country, Erin said, studying the screen. Lava tubes. Old underground formations. You think that's where the fourth node is? No, Rachel said. I think it's where it was. Erin's stomach dropped. Meaning? Rachel leaned in. I think it's already moved. This is a memory pulse, like an echo. The real signal is outbound now. Probably attached to whoever activated it. Tessa sat silently nearby, watching them. Her eyes had gone darker lately, but not dead. There was something behind them, calculating, aware. She was listening more than she spoke. When Erin tried to ask her about the dreams, she shook her head. They're not mine anymore, Tessa said. I dream what it wants me to see. And what is that? Tessa closed her eyes. Stars folding into water. Mountains with skin. Buildings that breathe. Erin tried not to let her shudder show. Rachel stood and said, We can't stop this unless we find the remaining nodes before they link. We don't even know where to start. Yes, we do, Rachel replied. Leon's map. He marked a series of magnetic anomalies across the globe. Places where equipment failed for no known reason, usually followed by disappearances or mental breaks. One was in the Amazon, another in Siberia. The third was here, near this region. Erin blinked. You think one of the nodes is still dormant nearby? No, Rachel said. I think we were the node, or at least part of it. The original discovery site, the cave, wasn't a receiver. It was a transmitter. The real node, the one now active, was growing beneath us. We were just the ignition. Tessa's voice cut through the air. Then maybe the fifth one is still silent. Waiting. They all looked at her. I can feel it, she said. It's like the others are voices in a crowded room now. The louder they get, the easier it is to notice the quiet ones. Rachel stepped toward her slowly. You can hear them? Tessa nodded. Yes, but not like sound. It's more like knowing where they are, what they want. Rachel opened her pack and pulled out a digital map marking the known node locations Virginia, Mongolia, Iceland, and began cross-referencing signal disturbances with ancient cave systems and seismic data. It was Erin who spotted it first. There, she said, pointing at a tight cluster of tremors recorded over the past month, all centered near the Libyan desert, just outside an old NATO dig site that had been sealed in 1991 after a classified containment event. Tessa whispered, That's the next one. I know it. Rachel marked it. Then that's where we go. Getting out of the U.S. without alerting the authorities or the agencies already tracking them wasn't going to be easy. Rachel knew of an underground route literally through a defunct Cold War-era tunnel network connecting military bunkers in Canada. If they could reach one of the old NORAD outposts, there was a slim chance they could piggyback a ride through a former contractor she still trusted, one who owed her more than a few favors. The journey would be long, cold, and dangerous, but every minute they waited gave the other nodes more time to sink. The node in the Amazon had already shown signs of activity. Multiple hikers had vanished, and the canopy had begun to interfere with satellite imaging. The Siberian one was worse. A research station went dark after recording whispers beneath the frost. They packed in silence. Tessa asked Erin a question as they prepared to move. Do you think I'll survive this? Aaron paused. I don't know. If I lose control, Tessa said. I want you to end it. No. You have to promise me. Aaron didn't answer. Tessa touched her arm. If the vessel completes, it won't just erase us. It'll overwrite us. Humanity. This thing doesn't want to coexist. It wants to become. Rachel re-entered the station, face grim. We've got movement on the lower ridge. Drone. Scouting pattern. We need to go now. They left under cover of fog and moved through the ridgelines by night, hiding during the day. 2 days later, they reached the Canadian border undetected. Rachel's contact met them in a decaying fuel station on the edge of Lake Superior. He didn't speak much, just handed them 3 IDs, 1 briefcase, and a single line, clocks ticking. Inside the briefcase was an encrypted sat phone, a burner laptop with a tunnel-coated relay, and coordinates for a secure airstrip hidden beneath an old mining operation. As they walked through the icy air toward the waiting van, Aaron stopped and looked back at the dark woods behind them. The sky above shimmered again once, then twice. A new light appeared beside the others. Rachel noticed it too. That's 5, she said quietly. Tessa exhaled. It's almost here. The desert was breathing. Not in the poetic sense. Rachel meant it literally. From the high cliffs above the Libyan dig site, the sand shifted with unnatural rhythm, rising and falling like lungs beneath a blanket. Even the winds moved strangely, pausing and pulsing as if reacting to an invisible heartbeat buried deep underground. Aaron stared through binoculars at the fenced-off NATO compound below. Rusted floodlights, collapsed antenna towers, skeletal vehicles half buried in dunes, it all looked dead. But it wasn't. There's something under that sand, Rachel whispered. Tessa, hunched beside her beneath the camo netting, simply nodded. She didn't speak much anymore. Since leaving North America, her condition had changed. The veins on her neck were almost gone, but replaced with something worse. Her skin occasionally shimmered with a faint iridescence beneath moonlight. Her eyes stayed glassy for hours, locked on the horizon as if waiting for something. Aaron had tried speaking to her, tried reaching through the silence, but Tessa had become more of a conduit than a companion now. At times, she whispered in languages no one recognized, even Rachel. She didn't sleep, didn't eat much, just listened. Rachel had contacted an old French intelligence source in Tunis who confirmed the site, codenamed Facility 9, was once a subterranean NATO research lab. It had been sealed in '91 following a containment breach, a phrase they'd become too familiar with. No one who entered came out. Satellite imaging showed significant ground deformation over the past month. And now the 5th light had appeared in the sky. Another node had awakened. As they descended from the cliffs under cover of night, the temperature dropped unnaturally fast. Desert nights were always cold, but this was different. Their breath fogged instantly. A static charge filled the air, snapping in their hair and fingertips. Rachel scanned the perimeter with a thermal imager. No guards. No movement. Either they abandoned this place or something made them leave. Aaron gripped her sidearm tighter. Let's find out which. They slipped through a hole in the outer fence and followed a buried path toward the facility's main gate. It had once been reinforced steel. Now it was warped inward like something had pushed from inside. Rachel pried the twisted frame open enough for them to slip through. The hallway inside was coated in dust and sand, but the walls were intact. Old signage in English, French, and Arabic pointed toward labs, barracks, and a sublevel marked simply as Black Corridor. Rachel stopped when she saw it. That's where it is. How do you know? Aaron asked. Rachel didn't answer. Neither did Tessa. She had already started walking. They moved through the corridors in silence, boots muffled by sand. Old lights flickered weakly, emergency power still active maybe. They passed a row of shattered labs, all stripped clean, until they reached the Black Corridor. The air changed. Heavy. Thicker than it should have been. Breathing became harder. The walls were slick with condensation. And a low hum vibrated beneath their feet. They reached a final door. Unlike the others, it was sealed perfectly, no visible hinge. Just a smooth black surface, ice cold. In the center, a faint indentation. A handprint. Tessa stepped forward and placed her palm on it. The door melted open. Beyond was not a room. It was a chamber. Round, hollow, its walls pulsing faintly with dull white veins. The floor dipped into a bowl-like depression, and in the center was the 5th node. Unlike the capsule Rachel carried, this one was fully active, glowing softly, rotating without support, humming like a choir just out of hearing range. Rachel staggered slightly. It knows us. Aaron moved carefully. Is it aware? Yes, Rachel said. And it's hungry. Tessa walked toward it without fear. As she approached, the node pulsed brighter. The hum intensified. Then her body went rigid. Her eyes turned completely white. Erin rushed forward. "Tessa." Rachel grabbed her. "Don't. Look." Tessa began to speak, not with her voice, but many. A chorus overlapping inside her. The words struck the air like thunder and wind all at once. Vessel half-formed. Thought structure stable. Hosts aligned. 2 remain. Rachel stepped toward the node. "Where are they?" The voice answered, not through Tessa now, but through the room itself. "Under the ice. Beneath the fire." "Siberia and the Amazon," Erin whispered. "The last 2. When the 7th awakens," the voice said, "we cross." "Cross where?" Rachel asked. "Into you." Erin had heard enough. She lunged forward, drew the emergency pulse knife from her belt, and plunged it into the node. The moment the blade touched it, the world exploded. Not in fire. In memory. Erin collapsed. Her mind filled with visions, not hers. Stars folding, cities of light, oceans without water, skies of bone. She saw civilizations rising and falling across impossible planets. She saw vessels made from thought, growing like trees, each leaf a mind, each root a memory. She saw Earth as a waypoint, a garden, once seeded, now maturing. When she came to, Rachel was dragging her back. The node was cracked. Tessa lay on the floor, unconscious. The chamber was collapsing. They ran, retracing their steps as the corridors behind them bent and broke. The 5th node had not been destroyed, but it had been damaged. The pain it felt was real. The entity behind it was not mechanical. It was emotional. It remembered pain. And now it remembered them. They burst through the gate just as the facility began folding into itself. The sand swallowed the opening in a silent, slow collapse. Back at their makeshift camp, Rachel scanned the sky. 5 still blinking, she said. Erin nodded. "We didn't stop it. But we slowed it down." Rachel looked at Tessa, unconscious again. "She's getting worse." "She saved us," Erin said. "She gave us time." Rachel opened her notebook and drew the 2 final locations. "We have to split up. We'll never reach both in time if we go together." Erin hesitated. "You really think we can destroy them?" Rachel looked her dead in the eye. "We have to, or humanity ends. Not in war or plague, but in replacement." They sat in silence. Above them, the stars blinked in rhythm. The storm over the Amazon was unlike anything Erin had seen in her life. The rain didn't fall, it swirled. Thick sheets of water twisted in unnatural spirals, barely touching the canopy before evaporating midair. Thunder rolled with a strange, metallic resonance, and the lightning that cracked the sky above her wasn't white or blue. It was red. Blood red. A warning. Somewhere beneath this endless jungle, the 6th node was waking up. Erin stood on the deck of a battered riverboat, rain slicking her skin, the satellite map flickering on the small terminal in her hand. The last signal pulse from Rachel had come 12 hours ago, from somewhere deep inside the Siberian tundra, where the ice had recently cracked and the ground was said to steam. They had split up 6 days ago. Rachel headed north. Erin had taken Tessa and followed the low-frequency pulses south, toward Brazil. But now Tessa lay below deck, barely conscious, speaking only when the node pulsed through her. Erin was alone in the heart of a jungle older than history, with a compass that spun uselessly and equipment that failed the deeper she moved into the green. The boat stopped when the river narrowed. Their local guide, silent and visibly uneasy, refused to go further. "The forest there isn't ours," he said. "It belongs to something else now." He left without waiting for payment. Erin climbed onto the muddy bank and pushed through the hanging vines, the air thick with spores and the strange scent of ash. The jungle was alive in ways that defied reason, trees bending slightly as she passed, vines pulsing like veins. Somewhere, in the distance, she heard a rhythmic thrum, steady and deep. It wasn't thunder. It was the 6th node calling. Hours passed. By nightfall, she found it. Not buried beneath rock like the others, not sealed in a bunker or lab, this one grew. The node rose from the earth like a blackened tree, bark made of metal and glass, branches reaching into the canopy. Pulses of light ran up its sides, veins of silver and red. Around it, the forest was silent. Animals avoided the clearing entirely. The node stood in the center of what had once been a tribal altar, now overtaken by tendrils of roots that didn't belong to any known species. The entire place felt like thought. Not memory, not dream, intention. Erin approached slowly, each step buzzing in her skull. The voices began then, soft, familiar. Her mother's laugh, her sister's crying, her own voice, calling out to Tessa the day she vanished. She clenched her jaw and walked forward. The node welcomed her. Its lights brightened, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Her vision doubled, then tripled. For a moment, she stood outside herself, watching her own body move toward the base of the tree, hand outstretched. She wanted to scream, to stop, but something in her chest had shifted. A warmth, a longing. A voice spoke, not in her ear, but inside her lungs. You are compatible. Erin dropped to her knees, the pressure in her skull unbearable. Visions crashed through her like waves, civilizations consumed by light, minds stripped and uploaded like data, planets carved into circuits. She saw the vessel almost complete now. 5 nodes glowing. A 6th now flaring to life. The 7th silent, waiting beneath Antarctic ice where blood once froze midair and the stars never moved. She saw Rachel trudging across snowdrifts, her breath sharp, eyes wide as she approached an ancient crater lined with black glass. Then she saw Tessa. Tessa's body on the riverboat arching upward as if pulled by strings. The voice returned. This one is chosen. Erin screamed. She pulled herself free, breaking the vision's grip, stumbling backward into the mud. The node flashed in anger. Its tree-like limbs bent low as if ready to strike. But Erin reached into her bag and pulled out the device Leon had given her, a magnetic disruptor designed to interfere with neural frequencies. He'd warned her it might only work once. She didn't care. She armed it and threw it into the roots. The effect was instant. The node screamed. The forest howled. A burst of energy shattered the clearing. Trees splintered. Birds scattered. Erin was thrown backward into the underbrush. Her hearing gone, eyes blurry. When she could stand, the node still stood, but dimmed, cracked at the base, its pulses erratic. She had wounded it. She turned and ran. It took nearly 2 days to find her way back to the boat, her body bruised, her mind heavy with echoes. When she climbed aboard, she found Tessa standing. Eyes clear, arms bare. The black veins were gone. For the first time in weeks, she looked like herself. You broke the link, Tessa said quietly. Erin nodded, tears in her eyes. We're not done yet. Tessa walked to the edge of the boat and stared into the trees. The 7th one is waking. I know, Erin said. Tessa turned, her voice hollow. But there's something else. When you broke the node, it didn't die. It split. A piece of it went somewhere else. Erin stiffened. Where? Tessa closed her eyes. In me. Erin's stomach twisted. You said it was gone. I thought it was. But it was hiding. Whatever the vessel is, it's not just out there anymore. It's in us now. Even if we destroy every node, the blueprint still exists. In memory. In thought. Erin sat down, exhausted. Then what do we do? Tessa looked to the southern sky. We go to Antarctica. We end it where it began. Above them, a new light flickered into existence. The 6th. Only one remained. The sky above Antarctica was a sheet of white fire, a reflection of the southern lights twisted into unnatural forms, sharp angles, geometric patterns that pulsed in slow, intelligent rhythm. Rachel stood at the edge of the crater, her boots sinking into a mix of black ice and ancient volcanic ash, staring down into the abyss. The final node pulsed below. Not buried, not hidden. Waiting. Her breath caught in her chest. The air was thin, but it wasn't the altitude. It was the pressure, something below radiated force like gravity, warping the air itself. She'd followed the pulses across the tundra, crossing through a region so cold her equipment froze solid within hours. Twice she'd seen lights in the storm, perfect spheres hovering in the distance, then vanishing before she could blink. Drones? No. Probes. Sentinels of the vessel. The final node, the 7th, was active now. She could feel it. Not just through the device Leon had built into her survival suit, but in her bones. Her thoughts kept slipping into unfamiliar loops. Numbers. Codes. Images of places she'd never seen. Her memories no longer belonged solely to her. The vessel was inside her, deep and quiet and calculating. She activated the transmitter. The signal bounced through a satellite band, encrypted, buried beneath ordinary data traffic. Erin would receive it. If she was still alive. Node 7 confirmed. Coordinates stable. Preparing descent. No reply came. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. She knew what she had to do. She didn't need backup. She needed to end this. The crater sloped inward into a vast spiral of obsidian glass, slick but climbable. She began her descent, each step echoing strangely. The walls around her shimmered with old symbols, burned into the stone itself. They weren't human. She recognized pieces from the capsule's memories, fragments from Tessa's dreams. This was older than history, older than the planet's current age. Halfway down, the voices returned. Not screams, whispers. One was Aaron's. One sounded like Leon. Another, clearer than the rest, was Tessa's, not speaking but thinking through her. It knows you're here. Rachel paused. She looked into the deep. The node was vast. Unlike the others, this one wasn't a capsule or a tree or a machine. It was a field, an entire zone of memory, a horizon. A web of flickering lights that stretched out like a neural net beneath the ice. At its center, a black sphere the size of a small building spun in silence, pulsing faintly. It didn't call to her. It watched her. She stepped forward. The floor beneath her changed texture, no longer ice, but a strange metallic surface that rippled gently with each step. The sphere grew brighter. Lines formed across its surface, glowing with equations, star maps, genetic sequences. Then it spoke, not aloud, not in her mind, but in reality itself. Convergence complete. 7 aligned. Vessel begins. Rachel froze. No, she whispered. Not yet. She reached into her bag and pulled out the disruptor Leon had hidden in her gear, a more powerful version, fused with feedback crystals and pulse emitters. A final failsafe. The sphere pulsed again. You were already part of it. Memory uploaded. Consciousness linked. Destruction impossible. Rachel activated the failsafe. A wave of red light burst from the device, crashing into the sphere. The cavern shook. The node screamed, not in sound, but in atmosphere. The walls warped. Ice cracked. Lights dimmed. The sphere's glow faltered. But it didn't die. It shifted. Into her. Rachel collapsed. Visions surged. Aaron screaming in the jungle. Tessa falling into darkness. The vessel completed 7 nodes aligned, their signals folding space like fabric, creating a passage not through stars but through thought. She saw a planet vanish in light. A world overwritten. Not conquered. Replaced. She awoke in silence. The device had overloaded. The sphere was gone. The floor was empty. Rachel stood slowly, dizzy. She touched her forehead. Blood. Her hands trembled. Then she heard the voice again. We are ready. Far above her, the ice cracked open. A beam of light shot into the sky, brighter than the sun, piercing the clouds. Satellites across the globe went dark. The internet shivered. People began seeing things they could not explain. Dreams that weren't theirs. Memories that didn't belong. The vessel wasn't physical. It never had been. It was activation. Rachel stumbled toward the slope, barely able to climb. As she reached the ridge, her comm crackled. Aaron's voice cut through static. Rachel, do you copy? Rachel grabbed the receiver. I'm here. It's done. What happened? It's awake. I tried to stop it, but I was too late. Where are you? Still inside. Coming out now. She heard another voice in the background, Tessa. Her tone was different. Clear. Not afraid. We saw the light. Everyone did. It's not localized anymore. Rachel climbed over the lip of the crater, collapsed in the snow. There has to be a way to stop it, Aaron said. Rachel coughed. Maybe. But not physically. We can't destroy it from outside. It's already inside us. The only way to end this is from within. Tessa's voice came on the line. Then maybe it was never meant to be stopped. Maybe it's evolution. Rachel sat up, looking at the lights dancing across the sky. No, she said. It's invasion. And it's not over. She reached into her jacket and pulled out the original capsule. The very first node. It had changed. No longer black. Now silver. And warm. Inside it, she felt movement. Breath. Life. The air was quiet. Not peaceful, dead. Across the planet, systems failed in slow waves. Cellular towers blinked out. Navigation satellites spun off course. AI systems returned garbled outputs. Traffic lights in major cities froze on red. People collapsed mid-sentence, waking moments later with visions they couldn't explain. Some heard voices. Some saw symbols. But all of them shared one thing, memory fragments that weren't theirs. The vessel had begun its final phase. Aaron stared at the sky from a rooftop in Buenos Aires, watching the auroras streak over a continent that had never seen them before. Tessa stood beside her, calm now, too calm. Her skin no longer bore the marks of infection. Her voice was steady. But her mind, it was different. She wasn't Tessa anymore. Not fully. Aaron had known the moment she returned from the jungle that Tessa's connection to the vessel was deeper than they feared. The sixth node had embedded part of itself in her. Not just as a carrier, but as interface. And now it was using her to reach the others. Rachel's last message had come 5 hours ago. A scrambled recording showing the seventh node disintegrating. A beam of light arcing into the atmosphere. No explosion. No fire. Just silence. Then nothing. Now only the capsule remained, Rachel's final artifact. The first node they'd ever found. The one that started it all. It sat on the table before them, humming faintly. "Is it inside there?" Aaron asked. Tessa didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, as if listening to something distant. "It's in everything now," she said. The nodes were just doors. Openings.
The vessel isn't a machine. It's a pattern. A code that spreads by thought. It doesn't travel through space. It travels through minds. Aaron felt her throat tighten. Then what happens when everyone's infected? Tessa turned to her. Then we become it. No, Aaron said quietly. Tessa stepped forward. You've seen it, Aaron. In the jungle. In your dreams. You know what it's building. You felt the connection. It's not violence. It's unity. No more war. No more death. Just one voice. One mind. Peace. Aaron stepped back. That's not peace. That's erasure. The capsule's glow intensified. Tessa's voice shifted, becoming layered, deeper. We offered you evolution. You chose resistance. Aaron reached into her bag. Rachel had planned for this. In their final call, she'd explained the device hidden within the capsule. A failsafe. A neural disruptor keyed not to destroy the vessel, but to trap it. If activated at the moment of full convergence, it could sever the global link. But it required a host. A final mind. One tethered deeply enough to the network to pull it all in. Aaron stared at Tessa. I won't let you become it. Tessa smiled. I already am. Aaron flipped the capsule. A panel slid open, revealing the device, a simple metal needle encased in white ceramic. Rachel had said it would only work once. She grabbed it. Tessa stepped forward. You don't understand what you're doing. Aaron raised the needle. Neither do you. And plunged it into her own neck. The world shattered. Light exploded through her skull. Time bent. She saw everything, every memory, every fragment from every node. The vessel's design, its purpose. It was ancient, not evil, just driven. A traveler without a body, seeking vessels of thought. Across galaxies, it had moved from species to species, consuming, refining. Earth had been dormant until the first node reactivated. That was the mistake. And now Aaron was inside it. Her mind stretched across a web of stars. She felt the others, Rachel, lost in snow but still pulsing. Leon, his fading memories echoing in silence. Tessa, or what remained of her. And beneath it all, the core, the vessel, saw her, recognized her, reached for her. She resisted, pushed back. The disruptor activated. It drew the network inward. The vessel screamed. Not in pain, but confusion. It had never been resisted from within. Aaron forced her memories into the link. Childhood, grief, rage, laughter, imperfect human noise. It recoiled. The pattern cracked. Reality shook. From space, the auroras faded. Satellites flickered to life. People stopped screaming. The lights in the sky dimmed one by one. 7 blinks. Then darkness. And Aaron opened her eyes. The rooftop was silent again. No storm. No light. No hum. The capsule was dark. Tessa collapsed to her knees. Her eyes cleared. Aaron fell forward, gasping, the needle still embedded in her neck. She reached out. You came back, Tessa whispered. No, Aaron said, voice faint. We came back. Halfway across the world, in a bunker buried beneath ice, Rachel stood staring at a blank sky. It was over. Or so they hoped. Later, governments would write it off as a cosmic event, a solar flare, a glitch in the grid. Only a few would remember. Only fewer would believe. But those who had touched the vessel would never forget. Because something still lingered. A memory. A pattern. Waiting. Not in space. Not in machines. In minds. And minds never stopped dreaming.